Excuse me, we were muted. Commissioner Depler for a roll call. We'll give them a second. Commissioner Rubis,
Here.
Chair Beatty.
Here.
Councilmember Brost and Mayor Garitano.
All right, thank you. Does the Department of Planning have any opening comments?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Just as a, just to advise you all, the city attorney is via Zoom tonight. He asked if that would be acceptable, and I certainly said yes. So if you have any questions, we do have the city attorney just via Zoom. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, can I get an approval of the minutes from the April 7th meeting, please? Motion by Commissioner Helfrey, seconded by Commissioner Clayton. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, so at this point, we'll go into public comment session. Do we have any speaker cards?
The department does not have any speaker cards, but saw a couple of the petitioners coming in a little bit towards right at the beginning of the meeting. So if they would like to speak, just indicate such. And no one on Zoom has their hand raised.
Can you change the screen on Zoom so I can see see the side list? Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. No hands raised and no comment cards. All right, we'll move on to the next. So, all right, PZ 2-25, G2 Property Holdings, Mr. Newberry.
Update on PZ 2-25 G2 Property Holdings, care of Martin L. Ewell, 2691 Joy Ridge Drive, Chesterfield, Missouri 63017. A request for a change in zoning from the C8 plan, amended C8 plan commercial district to the second amended C8 plan commercial district for a property that is generally located at the terminus of Hawthorne Village Parkway, west side of State Route 109, and also being south of State Route 100. PZ 22-97 St. Ange Properties, Wildwood Auto Mart. Property address 17109 Hawthorne Village Parkway, St. Louis County, locator number 23V130042, amended C8 plan commercial district, town center workplace district, thereby allowing amendments to the current governing ordinance to include new permitted uses and authorize other related accessory activities at the subject location. Proposed use, warehouse facility with parking area and also being inclusive of the outdoor storage of equipment and related materials. Ward 1.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, as you may be aware, at our April meeting, this particular matter was presented at public hearing. And at the public hearing, there are a number of comments relating to the current condition of the site, the future conditions of the site under a proposed rezoning, and then finally, the general architecture and design of the proposed building that would house this lawn maintenance business. Many of those questions could not necessarily be answered in the detail necessary to accommodate what I would consider the commission's support of proceeding forward with a information report with recommendation from the Department of Planning at the meeting. The commissioner was able to gather information from the manufacturer of the building, and that information shows some of the changes, components that can be added to it to lessen the look of it as a metal building and more as a stick-built type. Also, the preliminary development plan has been updated based upon comments that were heard by the petitioner from the public hearing meeting in April. Tonight, the department is just providing that information in advance of the June meeting to have as much time as you need to review it and form any questions you'd like the department to answer between now and then, or certainly that night in June. If there are any questions regarding this information and the next steps in the process, the department would be glad to answer them at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vunich. Are there any questions from the commission?
Thank you.
All right, seeing none, we'll move on to new business. PZ 5-25. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, PZ 5-25, Katie Kaysen, 18027 Shepherd Ridge Road, Wildwood, Missouri 63038, is seeking the review and action of the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding an outdoor game court, pickleball court, which is proposed to be located on a 3.4 acre parcel of ground that is situated on the west side of Shepherd Road, northwest of its intersection with Shepherd Ridge Spur, street address 18027 Shepherd Ridge Road, St. Louis County, locator number 21V 6301113, and zone NU non-urban resident district. This request is to be reviewed in accordance with Chapter 415.090 NU non-urban resident district regulations of the City of Wildwood zoning code, which establishes standards and requirements for outdoor game courts relating to their considerations by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The proposed outdoor game court constitutes an accessory use to the primary residential activity and is planned to be situated on the west side of the existing single-family dwelling. This particular property is located in Ward 3.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department will begin its presentation with a just brief slide presentation of the subject site. The site is outlined in red here. The aerial image shows that it is located off of Shepherd Road, which I'm trying to highlight with my cursor here. It's to the east of Shepherd Road. This is just a closer up view of the property with the topography lines. Here's a sketch site plan. The blue rectangle is the general area of the court and the retaining walls that form the flat surface for the court. This is a plan view of the court itself. Just a few items to note. On the east side are a series of landscape plantings. And then the basketball goal is located on the center of the east length of the court, and a proposed light standard on the west length of the court. This is a combination pickleball court, basketball court. It's striped to be a pickleball court, and the volleys would go north and south for the pickleball court. This is a view standing at the entrance of the driveway looking to the south on Shepherd Ridge Road. This is standing at the same location looking to the north. And this is standing at a very similar location looking to the west towards the location of the court that is down the grade that you see there beyond the driveway. And then this photograph is standing at the western edge of the court, generally speaking, looking to the east towards the driveway where the previous photo was taken. And then just a few side shots of the court. This is at the northeast corner of the court looking across it. And then at the southeast corner of the court looking across where the court would be created. And that concludes the slideshow presentation. If you just give me a moment. So, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared for your consideration a report with recommendation regarding the proposed outdoor game court that was just kind of described with the photograph presentation. As I mentioned, the proposed game court is planned to be striped for pickleball court with a single basketball goal. The flat area of the court will be created by a series of retaining walls of varying heights. None of the walls will exceed 6 feet in height. And then, as I mentioned, there is a proposed light standard that is 15 feet in height and has an LED fixture. The department has reviewed the proposed outdoor game court and is recommending that the Planning and Zoning Commission support it, but with some additional conditions that are outlined in the report. I'll summarize just a few of them here. Some of the recommended conditions are typical considerations that the commission takes into consideration with any game court, while others are specific to the proposed pickleball activity. So just first, a few of the more general conditions. One of them is that with any type of work like this, we would typically require a engineered plan set be prepared. which will allow the Department of Public Works to conduct a review under our grading code, as well as any stormwater management facilities that might be needed with the additional impervious surface. The department would note, and it did in its report, that the site is located in the Cox Creek watershed, the most stressed watershed of the city's 9 watersheds. Kind of to conclude the more general requirements, there are conditions outlined in the report relative to the required landscaping and the lighting being compliant with the city's outdoor lighting code, as well as the addition of a timer on the lighting to shut off at 9 p.m. Next set of items that the department wants to address relate to the specific pickleball activity. The department would note that as there's more and more interest in having pickleball courts like this in residential settings, even on large lots, there's a better understanding of the noise that is associated with the game of pickleball. The noise that's associated with pickleball is regularly described as louder, at a higher frequency, and a more distinct sound than typical outdoor game court activity like basketball, et cetera. So with that knowledge, the department thinks it's important to address and mitigate the sound for the neighboring properties. So we have a set of conditions in the report regarding that, one of which is the inclusion of a fence or a wall to serve as a sound barrier, and placed of a height and a placement that would best mitigate the sound and limit the impact on neighboring properties. We have also recommended that there's an increased setback of 75 feet for the court in lieu of the typical 30-foot side and rear setback in this location. The location that has been proposed meets that requirement, but we did include it in the recommended action of the commission. And then, as I mentioned regarding the light, having a shut-off time of 9 p.m., we've also recommended that there be a curfew established with the pickleball activity to line up with that 9 p.m. Curfew. So again, in reviewing the proposal for the outdoor game court, the department is recommending that the commission support it with the set of conditions that are detailed in the report, and some of them summarized in the presentation tonight. And we're available for any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. So you think that pickleball creates more sound than, say, basketball?
Everything, we did research on this in preparation for this and other previous discussions. And the research that we conducted identifies the pickleball noise as being louder from a decibel standpoint. And the striking of the ball against the paddle creates a higher frequency than typical noise. And there were some communities that do regulate this type of activity specifically in their code, and they just identify it as kind of a distinct, impulsive, and can be annoying type sound is the way it was colloquially described in several instances.
Yeah. I've only played once, so I kind of get what you're saying. I do feel like it's definitely louder than, say, if you're playing tennis, the wiffle ball versus the tennis ball. But I'm just thinking, I feel like dribbling a basketball is could almost be even louder, and shooting the basketball shots off the backboard. I'm just thinking of one night when my neighbor or some kids were banging on my neighbor's basketball hoop, and I could hear it pretty well from inside my house. But I'll take your word for it. Commissioner Helfrey?
Well, first of all, I was just curious if the petitioners here, if they might want to speak at all.
That's up to the chair.
If they want to say anything.
The petitioner's representative is here. I saw him walk in. We had a
Okay.
meeting this morning at the property. So that, Mr. Chair, that's at your discretion.
Yeah, I'm willing to allow it.
No? Okay, so I am looking at on the stuff that you guys gave us, page 9 of 36. So I'm just, because I just am trying to understand just a few things from the pictures. So the pickleball court looks like it's down a little bit, lower than the house, right, in the backyard, and it's a little offset from the back of the house. Would that be accurate so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so would the light be closer to the house shining away from the house? Is that the side? Because my northeast, south, and west is all off.
So the western side of the court, which is away from the house and away from the private street
So it's away from the house and it's shining back towards the court?
and onto the court. Yes.
Okay, and so they just have to meet a standard with that, and you're saying 9 o'clock.
That is what the department has recommended.
Okay, and then the trees, the wall, the sound mitigation, what does that look like in your vision? Is it a stone wall? Is it just with shrubbery? And is it all the way around all four sides or just one side?
I think that is something that I failed to mention is that if the commission recommends approval for this tonight, one of the conditions that's mentioned throughout the report is that there would be a site plan review also. So we would work through those details, and the commission would have the opportunity to review those.
Got it. Okay, well, I am all fine with everything. I would offer to stay till 10 o'clock instead of 9. I just feel like nobody's in bed at 9, but whatever. That's all.
Commissioner Cohn?
Yeah. Looking at the picture is can't hear me? Okay. Has work already begun on the course?
So the activity you see at the site today relates to a septic system that had been approved by the city and has been installed and is in use. And then there's also a patio area that's being improved substantially behind the home. And the same company that has been contracted for the court has started work on the patio, and it's been authorized by the city.
With regard to noise, my wife and I play pickleball. And the loudest noise is my wife when she misses a shot. Not the sound, paddle, okay? So the noise really isn't a factor, just the participants. Okay, thank you. That's my only comment.
Thank you, Mr. Cohn.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Certainly, when the department looks at a proposal and it has some unique characteristics, the department does do research to verify what it's thinking or what it believes might be appropriate to control those characteristics. And as Mr. Newberry mentioned, we did do some research. There are several communities in the St. Louis County area that manage pickleball courts in a very similar way. So this isn't new requirements or new legislation. We're kind of staying close to the edge of the pool because we want to make sure what we require is reasonable. I always fall back on, relative to noise, that the large lot areas in Wildwood are some of the quietest areas that remain in St. Louis County. And we appreciate the fact that people want to have a range of activities on their properties. But anything in terms of noise and lighting, those things that go beyond property lines fairly simply, we look at very, very hard. And that's what we're doing here. If we're going to err, we're going to err on the side of being cautious, not necessarily the other way. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Maybe it's a little bit off the subject, but if you're ever looking for another couple to play pickleball with, my wife and I live on Shepherd Road and back up to Shepherd Ridge Road, and we're available just in case you're short a player. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or motion?
See, making a motion based on the department's recommendation.
Motion by Mayor Garitano. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Clayton. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes, and don't forget the swear jar.
Commissioner Rubis,
Yes.
Commissioner. One second.
Yeah, all of a sudden I realized that we hid the Zoom screen.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
and Mayor Garitano. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. Motion carries. All right. PZ 3-99, West County Community Church, Mr. Newberry.
A recommendation report of the Department of Planning regarding PZ 3-99 West County Community Church in non-urban residence district with the Planned Residential Development Overlay District, PRD. Street address 17770 Mueller Road in St. Louis County, locator number 23W410031, northeast corner of State Route 100 and Mueller Road, which supports the expansion of the current lobby area at Fellowship of Wildwood's main sanctuary area and other modifications to current improvements to accommodate further additions. Ward 1.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared for your consideration tonight a report with recommendation regarding the requested expansion of Fellowship of Wildwood. Fellowship of Wildwood is the new name of West County Community Church. But as you know, once we assign a Planning and Zoning Commission number, that number travels with it regardless of any changes that might come along thereafter. Fellowship of Wildwood is located on the northeast corner of Mueller Road and State Route 100, west of Route 109. It is an approximately 30-acre area that forms the campus of this place of worship. On the campus of this place of worship is the sanctuary building, which contains accessory uses such as offices and others, along with a 2-story school building, a youth center, and then supporting activities and uses as well, including a stormwater retention facility, a lake, a centralized wastewater treatment plant, and a large playground facility in association with the school. It is a very developed site in many ways, but still there is ample area that contains the preserved woodlands and then turf area that is used on occasion for athletic fields. Congregation continues to grow, and it is the desire of the place of worship to expand their lobby area to add 3 things: additional meeting space, more space for hospitality, and then additional seating. Along with the expansion to the entry area or lobby, they are also wanting to add an elevator to the existing school building in the vicinity of the existing school building. That footprint of the elevator shaft, the addition to the building, is approximately 140 square feet. In the information provided by Fellowship of Wildwood, it is their intent to match the current architecture of the place of worship, the church, as well as the school building. That is brick primarily, and the colors are to be identical as well. In reviewing the site development plan, the expansions, the 2 components, are well within the buildable area of the site. No encroachment into the setbacks. There is no change to the parking, because again, these areas are considered accessory to the primary use, and that's the sanctuary seating. And there are no changes to the access driveway that forms a circle. All in all, they're basically taking existing flat work and adding a building onto it. And so from the perspective of the department, it is compliant to the governing PRD, Planned Residential Development Overlay District, as well as the design criteria relative to the existing improvements that were authorized many, many years ago. So tonight you have a favorable recommendation relative to this requested expansion. I would conclude by saying this is scheduled before the Architectural Review Board for this coming Thursday night, May 7th, and they will take a look at the architecture and will be able to ask questions about the site development plan based upon tonight's presentation and discussion and action. Again, if there are any questions or comments, Mr. Newberry and I are available to respond to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Any discussion or motion? Commissioner Cohn?
Yeah, with the expansion, what kind of impact does that have on the parking ratio?
Again, when the parking ratio was calculated, we worked first and foremost from the number of seats in the sanctuary or the worship space. That is the primary determinant of parking associated with the site. When they did the two-story classroom building, we discussed how does that impact the parking? But as you know, most places of worship meet on Sunday. School is not in session. So again, we fell back to the place of worship. They have parked the facility for 500 seats. So there's ample parking, and this additional expansion, particularly just for the entry area, appears to have no impact.
Thank you.
What is it number, like one spot for 2, 3, 4 seats?
Actually, it's one space for every 4 seats. And if there are seats per se, but there are seats in this particular situation, it's pew length.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Garitano?
Yeah, and familiar with their parking lot, they have a lot of parking because it also goes around the back of the building.
Mhm.
So even when they have school events, they can accommodate it. I'm happy to make a motion, proceed with the department's recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Garitano. Second by Commissioner Helfrey. Commissioner Rubis, were you just throwing a second? Okay, any other discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilmember Cone,
Yes.
excuse me, I said councilmember. I don't normally misspeak like that. Commissioner Cone. Thanks for putting up with me. Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis,
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes,
and Mayor Garitano.
Yes.
Thank you.
motion carries. Thank you. All right, next up, the Highway 100 improvements, Mr. Newberry.
A recommendation report from the Department of Planning and Public Works on a 2025 capital improvement program project, which is the construction of a State Route 100 improvements inclusive of several J and left turn lanes on this arterial roadway that is maintained by the Missouri Department of Transportation, MoDOT, which must be considered and acted upon by the Planning and Zoning Commission per state statute that stipulates such review processes for municipalities with a master plan and exercises its allowable zoning authority, wards 1 and 6.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before the department begins its presentation, if Mr. Newberry would bring Mr. Brown onto screen. Thank you. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, a report with recommendation has been prepared for your consideration tonight regarding a set of improvements to State Route 100. As you are aware, State Route 100 is maintained by the state of Missouri via the Missouri Department of Transportation, and in many instances is the only limited access design roadway in the city of Wildwood, principally from the eastern edge of Wildwood, where it meets the city limits of Ellisville, to approximately State Highway T. As part of the improvement many, many years ago in the 1980s, access was purchased by the state to limit the number of curb cuts that could enter and exit the right-of-way area. South and west of State Highway T, State Route 100 is a 2-lane roadway with shoulders and limited stormwater management facilities. It is, in many instances, the most traveled road in all of Wildwood. Provides not only access to local homes, businesses, and et cetera, but also acts as a cross-county arterial, meaning people use it to head west, Franklin County and beyond, and the opposite direction depending on time of day. This particular matter has been front and center for our Director of Public Works, Rick Brown, and the Department of Public Works for many years. Projects involving the state of Missouri, particularly ones that are receiving federal funding through the efforts of the city of Wildwood, take many years to come to fruition. Part of the intent of these improvements is primarily safety. As speeds have increased across the board, regardless of posted speed limits, and the amount of traffic has increased over time as well, certain intersections designed for a rural community may no longer be appropriate. And those include Pond Road and Route 100, State Highway T and Route 100. Also, many of our residents that live south and west of State Highway T and in this intersection with the arterial roadway have experienced problems in times when trying to make a left-hand turn and people are coming very close to rear-ending them, or they drive on the shoulder around them at high rates of speed. It can be very unsettling if you're sitting there waiting for the oncoming traffic to clear so you can turn, and you see someone traveling at a high rate of speed, apparently not slowing down enough to make you feel comfortable. All of these things led to the decision of City Council to proceed forward with improvements to Route 100. Two J-turn locations are proposed. Those are the intersections I referenced. And then there is a grouping of left turn lanes that will be added from approximately State Highway T, Route 100 intersection to the Franklin County line. All of these are being funded in part by the state of Missouri through federal dollars and the city of Wildwood. It is a project long coming, and along with the project, the roadway, which hasn't been surfaced for many, many, many years, will also be improved in that regard. The department would note that preliminary work has begun. It apologizes to the commission for bringing the report a little tardy, but again, things have been moving fast over the course of the last 5 months or so, and unfortunately, we weren't as moving as fast as them. With that, I'll conclude, and then I'll ask Mr. Brown or Mr. Lee, our city administrator, if they'd like to add anything to the presentation provided by the department. But we are supporting these plans and believe it's a good project and will improve safety and save lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vinich. Mr. Lee, Mr. Brown, do you have anything to add?
With your permission, Chair, I can, I'll let Mr. Brown, speak to this since he is our city engineer, but I would just concur with these improvements are going to save lives. The highest fatality area, the intersection anyways, for the city, and nonetheless, the reasoning of how it happened is that intersection at Pond and Highway 100. So adding these J-turns, there was a study that kind of kicked this whole thing off back at University of Missouri. It showed with the addition of J-turns, you can decrease fatal crashes by about 54%. Rick can correct me if I'm wrong, but that data is actually, after some research on my own part, in states like Wisconsin, Minnesota, some of the northern states, they've really implemented these J-turns as a, where you're really meeting rural and non-rural areas of the communities. And the same statistics show across the board when you have these crossovers that are on high-speed roadways, especially with 100 when you're going westbound, that typically just per the police department, that's when people start to speed a little bit as they're heading to Franklin County. So adding these J-turns is specifically going to help the individuals coming off Pond Road and Highway T, effectively get onto the road and make a turn. The left turn lanes, I think, speak for themselves. You're taking a roadway that you're stopping practically in traffic to make that left, and you're now getting into a dedicated lane. So overall, these are great safety improvements. They're anticipated to be done this year. They've already started that preliminary work, which the only thing is we wish we got this report to you a little bit sooner. But other than that, at least from the Department of Administration side, we fully support this project. Rick, if you want to add anything.
Thank you, City Administrator Lee. The only thing I would mention is both these projects, we tend to look at them as Wildwood projects. They're Wildwood and MoDOT projects. They have been around since 2021. We applied for cost share program funding for both of these improvement projects, the left turn lanes and the J-turn. So they originated from a study that MoDOT had done around 2020 or thereabouts. We applied for cost share funds. So it's a MoDOT and Wildwood project for both of these two improvements, the left turns and the J-turns.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Brown and Mr. Lee. Mayor Gutman.
Yeah, I will just add to that. A lot of this work is being done because of the voice of our residents, for those that live in those areas that have expressed concerns with the safety, especially if they live in those areas there. So a lot of feedback took place. We had an open house where we presented these plans and they provided their input, and even that input was included in the final product here. And then also, another big reason why we are doing this is because we have seen some serious accidents with some serious injuries in these areas. So between the feedback from the residents, the council members that represent the areas that are impacted, this project is one that is greatly endorsed by the city to move forward. So with that, I'll go ahead and make a motion for the recommendation as well, as noted by the department.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Helfrey. So I do have one. Do what? I saw. Sorry, I saw her first. But I do have one concern, especially at Pond Road. Pond Road is heavily traveled by cyclists, and I have a concern that they may not be able to get across that intersection very easily after this is done. Can there be anything done to keep a little path there so that they can get across the road without having to swerve around traffic?
I'll defer to Mr. Brown.
I can answer that too.
Oh,
I,
Mr. Brown?
yeah, I think Mr. Lee's aware as well, but we were aware of this concern early on, Mr. Beatty, and so we did add a break wide enough such that the cyclists can get through at Pond Road, and I believe at Route T as well. So we were aware of the concern, and we did our best to address it.
okay. That's what I wanted to make sure of. I just didn't want to, was hoping that it wouldn't be like a ditch graded in there in the middle after this is all said and done. So if I'm good with it, if you'll keep that path through there on both of those.
As part of the plan sets.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to get it up and it was taking forever. So. All right. Commissioner Rubis?
In addition to the resurfacing of the roadway, are the shoulders going to be reconstructed too?
That is my understanding, but I'll defer to Mr. Brown, our expert.
Well, thank you, Joe. The plans for most of the project essentially are going to overlay the shoulders by and large. Obviously, where we're doing the widening work, they're going to replace them in kind, or remove them and replace them. So through the left turn lanes, through the J-turn areas, where we're doing widening work, they'll be removed entirely. But elsewhere, I believe they are being resurfaced, overlaid with additional asphalt.
Yeah, because a lot of the shoulders, at least in Wildwood proper is they're crumbling, and if you just overlay it, I don't think that's.
Yeah, they've gotten really bad the last 2 or 3 years.
I think Mr. Lee, our city administrator, has said at one point that this may be the first major maintenance of Route 100 since it was constructed back in the 80s.
This is definitely.
They did.
Yep. Sorry, Rick.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say they did a little bit a few years ago, and I think they may have maintained the shoulders a little bit, but it's just been the concrete patches that yeah.
Mr. Lee?
Oh, it's with your permission, Chair.
Go ahead. Yeah.
And Rick can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the largest capital project taking place on our stretch of Route 100 since when it was created back in the late 70s. So that's what that stat's coming from, but it's just the largest project. They've done some just touch-up work, but when it comes to actually doing the entirety of the road and adding in these safety improvements, I don't think anything like this has been done since its construction.
Yeah, I would believe that. That concrete's looking old.
If you're
and
curious,
then-
the prior prior resurfacing dates to about 2005.
Okay. Um. All right, and then on the turn lanes, where they're putting in the turn lanes, are they going to widen the shoulders there also?
The shoulders will be adjusted to accommodate the turn lanes.
Okay,
But in terms of widening, my review of the plans indicate they'll be that standard width as is, but just adjusted so as. those
so
turn
like
lanes-
if, I mean, all I'm saying is that if it's a 10-foot shoulder now, not saying it is or it isn't, but where they have the turn lanes, will there still be a 10-foot shoulder?
That's my understanding of the review of the plans is it'll retain its current size or width.
Mhm.
Mr. Brown, am I saying that correctly, or I read the plans wrong, which is always a possibility?
Joe, I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm looking out for cyclist safety here because I know the road's well used.
Certainly, and I would always caution cyclists on Route 100, speed on that particular stretch of the highway doesn't leave much room for error.
You know, I realize that, but maybe I give too much confidence in the ability of this motorist to stay between the white and yellow line. Having that wide shoulder, they can be going as fast as they want, and it doesn't bother me usually.
Well, Mr. Dewberry and I frequent Interstate 44, and we could probably tell you some stories about how hard it is to stay between those white lines.
I was driving to Nashville this weekend and there were a few semis. I'm like, man, he is swerving out there.
Yep.
But okay. Anyone think we can do a roll call vote at this point? Go ahead, Trev.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Doppler,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis,
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
and Mayor Garitano.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. All right. Next on the agenda, PZ 26, 27, and 28-23, Mr. Newberry.
The recommendation report prepared by the Site Plan Subcommittee for the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the site development plan package and related items for PZ 26, 27, and 28-23 Fisher and Frickel Custom Homes LLC, care of Chris DeGentz, 695 Trade Center Boulevard, Suite 200, Chesterfield, Missouri, 63005. R4 7,500 square foot residence district, Town Center Neighborhood General District with a planned residential development overlay district, PRD, northeast corner of State Route 100 and State Route 109, St. Louis County locator numbers. This 30 residential single family.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Site Plan Subcommittee of the Planning and Zoning Commission has authorized the preparation of a final recommendation report regarding this particular site development plan and related components. The related components, as referenced in the report, include the public space plan, the landscaping plan, the lighting plan, and a number of different reports relative to the geotechnical condition of the property, a traffic study, a phase one environmental assessment, and then finally, the required stormwater pollution prevention plan. It's a comprehensive submittal from Fisher Frickel relative to this 8+ acre site. The Site Plan Subcommittee held its discussion on April 7th at the last meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And at the conclusion of that meeting, recommended a favorable recommendation be prepared by the Department of Planning for presentation tonight. As was read into the record by Mr. Newberry, the 8 acre site will accommodate up to 30 home sites. 30 home sites are shown. The majority of those home sites and dwellings will match the type that has been constructed and occupied in Village E of the villages at Brightleaf. Those are more of the villa types with maintenance shared by the homeowners association, not necessarily the individual property owners. The lots are generally smaller in size than the remainder of the 4 villages and villages at Brightleaf. But again, there's an intended demographic or population that's these are being provided for. The city council reduced the overall lot count from their recommended amount of 34 to 30. And in response to that reduction, there are a set of lots, those that abut the proposed retention basin lake, and those will be larger lots, wider in width, and accommodate a more craftsman style type of house. So there'll be 2 types or 2 distinct designs in terms of housing. Craftsman style houses, renderings were provided to the department as we discussed this change, and they are very attractive and appealing. All of those will go through the city's architectural review board at a future date. The department would note that this particular site is designated neighborhood general. Since the inception of the town center plan to 2018, it was intended to be commercial. However, improvements to Route 109 eliminated potential access off of that state arterial, requiring now any commercial traffic to enter into a residential area. Therefore, the town center update team recommended that it be neighborhood general. And this particular design and type of use is consistent with that designation. In the report, the department goes over the key characteristics of the project, some of which I've summarized. But ultimately in the report, based upon the site plan subcommittee's discussion, the department has prepared a favorable recommendation. That recommendation is premised on compliance to the governing plan residential development overlay district, the PRD, and design criteria set forth for any type of residential subdivision, both in the design criteria manual and the city's subdivision and development regulations. It is important to note that other service providers, that being the Fire District, Missouri Department of Transportation, along with the utilities, have all submitted letters of service or support. It is also important to note a key component of many of our discussions relating to town center residential projects. There are 24 additional spaces beyond the 4 that are provided for each dwelling unit. Those 24 additional parking spaces are provided by the mailbox clusters and on one side of the street. The street is the minimum 26.1 feet in width. The landscaping component is provided by the developer for this particular site, has been described by the department as engaging, and there are strategic placements of the landscaping around the perimeter to help screen from the 2 roadways, as well as provide privacy along the rear of the lots, particularly those abutting the lake from the trail system that is nearby. The stormwater management plan is a vast improvement over stack pile retention. We salute Fisher Frictil for doing a water feature, which will add an aesthetic feature as well. The department would also note that the public space plan integrates this particular project into the budding trail system of the cities along Route 100 and Route 109, but also provides sidewalks into the villages of Brightleaf and Taylor Road Extension. It is an interconnected development. And finally, through some negotiations, Fisher Frictil is considering making improvements to Taylor Road Extension north of their site, off-site, and that will be considered by our city council, I believe, on May 14th. All in all, the department finds the plan to be compliant to the governing ordinance that's site-specific to it, that all of the utilities and service agencies have reviewed the plan and provided comments which have been addressed, and from the standpoint of the underlying regulations for land use in the city, the plan complies. Therefore, tonight, in support of the subcommittee's direction, Department of Planning is recommending approval of the package. If there are any questions or comments regarding the report prepared for the site plan subcommittee, Mr. Newberry, Mr. Brown, and I would be glad to answer them at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Vernich. Any discussion or motion? Commissioner,
You said that the developer is considering the improvements to Taylor Road connecting to 109. What does that mean, considering?
Well, improvements to Taylor Road extension along the frontage of the subject site are required. Those will be done.
Right.
And they'll match what's across the street as part of Village E. Off-site improvements, the department via now the city council have offered traffic generation assessment fee credits. Because as you know, once you drive north of this particular area, it becomes more of a rural road. And the reason I say is considering there is a development agreement that's in formulation. Ultimately, that's a decision of city council, so I don't want to say they are until city council act.
Okay. And then one other question, is the fountain lighted?
Is the fountain? According to Mr. DeGins from Fisher Frictal, yes, it will be lit.
all right, Commissioner Helfrey?
Well, just as an aside, one of the questions that came up from one of the people that lived on Taylor Road at the last meeting was that we discussed this was where the construction traffic was going to come. So is it going to come off of Manchester and Taylor, or is it going to come off of Taylor and 109?
The ordinance requires that Route 109 be the primary construction route to Taylor Road extension. And then the temporary parking and access area to the site would be to the north end, not to the south end. So the intent is to keep construction traffic out of the villages at Brightleaf.
So then, okay, so let's follow the logic, and maybe I'm making this too difficult, but it seems to me that you just said this was a rural road and we have people that live on that part of the road that's rural. And now we're saying that's where all the construction traffic is going to be, and that's where the parking is going to be. It seems to me that that could be problematic.
I call it a rural road because it's a minimum 2 lanes in width. At least on the west portion of it, there's no sidewalk. There are limited stormwater facilities on the east side, the development side, which includes Sandalwood Creek condominiums and Hickory Manor. So it's not a true rural road, but it is not necessarily like Taylor Road extension. What I would say is bringing the construction traffic through Taylor Road extension in the villages at Brightleaf, that requires them to maneuver 2 roundabouts, 2 speed humps, and obviously be truly in a residential setting. Sandalwood Creek has homes that side to Taylor Road extension. There is one existing home that faces it, and then all of the ones in Hickory Manor back to it. So from the standpoint of the impact, the department measured the impact and felt it was lesser from Route 109 south versus from Route 100 through the villages at Brightleaf.
Well, so I'm not stating that the city didn't look at that. All I'm bringing to the attention of everyone is that there is a house there. It is a very narrow road, and this man felt enough to come in front of this group and say, hey, don't forget me. So all I would ask is that when they do this is that they are very, very mindful of this man's property and the fact that he can get in and out and that no damage is done, and that they're mindful. You know, I mean, I'm just addressing it because he did. And I feel like that's just fair to say that for him. And so I'll make a motion if there hasn't been one to approve this as the city's recommended. But I just wanted to address that because
Certainly.
that homeowner felt the need to bring it to our attention.
And the department appreciates that. Part of the stormwater pollution prevention plan is Fisher Frictal will have to provide dedicated off-street parking for construction employees. They also have to provide a washdown area. So if vehicles do come into the site and it's muddy, they don't leave the site with mud. And as we found in villages at Brightleaf, Fisher Frickville does a good job of coming at the end of the day to make sure that the streets are clear. The additional traffic, certainly it's a concern, but we can't access off of Route 109, we can't access off of Route 100, so we're left with two options, and this seemed the least impactful of those two.
The north edge is the shorter travel distance from the highways. So,
Good point, thank you.
yeah. Mayor Garitano?
Director Vunich, could you speak to during the development construction that is taking place, what kind of perimeter edge treatment will they do as far as trying to, preserve at least, or, maintain the aesthetic of the area during that construction? I've spoken with you before that I've seen some practices in other areas where they do a little bit more focus on some of the landscaping around the perimeter, so as to while the construction's taking place, it does help provide a bit of a transition. Is there anything like that here?
Well, the good news is that the best buffer of woodlands is the set of trees that are in the public right-of-way, Route 100, Route 109. They will not be disturbed as any component of this project. The tree preservation plan shows the woodland areas, particularly on the north tip, and some along what I would consider the southern boundary being retained. In terms of the sequencing of new landscaping, I think from the perspective of Fisher Frickville, it would probably work from west to east, meaning from the detention area to the roadway. I would probably suggest in this instance, roadway is going to be the construction access, so that may be the last of the bunch. I can, again, Mr. DeGents is here. If he has any thoughts, with the chair's permission, I'll yield the podium. It's a good question and deserves the best answer.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, if you like, come on up.
I think the reason I bring it up is that I've seen this in other areas and kind of saw this and thought maybe we need to do a little bit more of that in Wildwood, where, you see a new subdivision going up, but they'll kind of have the perimeter already starting to look nice, so that at least it does provide a better aesthetic appeal. So, but Joe, I think you answered the part about the trees, so that's helpful there.
Good evening, Chair, Mayor, members of the Commission. My name's Chris DeGans with Fisher and Frickville. Actually, since the initial meeting that we had on this property with the DZRC, it's been a common concern in terms of the perimeter and the landscape and sort of the visibility of that corner from both highways. So the landscape plan is up now. You can see it's a very robust plan. That is all the circles and so forth that you see are all new landscaping that we're installing. But as Joe mentioned, the tree mass that is really older, more established tree mass is all in the public rights of way. And those are areas that are not even part of our property. We won't be entering those areas whatsoever. There is a lot of, second growth that was on this property. St. Luke's has owned it for a long time. At one point, the highway went through this property before they built the overpass. So there's a lot of invasive Bradford pear type trees and other stuff that's internal to the site that really isn't stuff that, is necessary to be maintained. But they're, anywhere around the trails, we're being very sensitive. Any areas that we are removing, we're rebuilding with buffers to both buffer the trail, but also buffer noise and visibility of the property. So I think, as Joe mentioned, everything that's on the point part of the property, we will develop and then revegetate and landscape, and then the housing will pretty much be up towards Taylor Road. So I'm not sure if that completely answers your question, but we can certainly be sensitive to how we're doing that. Obviously, when you build the lake area, that will probably be the most visible activity that we have. And we'll move through that and try to reestablish those slopes with vegetation as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and I believe we're still looking for a second on Commissioner Helfrey's, seconded by, I'll give it to you, Mr. Commissioner Rubus. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubus,
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Cohn,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
and Mayor Garitano.
Yes. All right, motion carries. Thank you. And all right, so an update schedule for the review and consideration of the master plan. Mr. Vunich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I'm sure as you are aware from our first set of meetings relative to the Citizens Oversight Group for the Master Plan 2026, we talked a lot about the history of the document, the next steps relative to the update, and then finally the public input survey and the results from that survey. In preparing for the update of the master plan, Department of Planning started discussions relative to the process with the Planning and Parks Committee of City Council in the fall of 2024. And as part of that discussion, the department acknowledged that the past two updates, 2006 and 2016, the technology that's available now and the software programs that also can complement that technology were not available. So it was the department's hope, as well as I believe the council committee, that we could engage that technology, the programming, and make this particular update in 2026 a little more engaging than just paper and pencil, so to speak. As we found in the first set of meetings, that 23 individuals plus 4 staff members plus facilitator plus it's a large group, and we're not managing our time as well as I had hoped. We now will have our May meeting and start our first element, which is a little too concerning to the Department of Planning. The reason the department is presenting this to the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight is that under state statute, you are the authority that adopts the city's master plan. It's forwarded from your adoption to the city council for endorsement and ratification, but ultimately you're the authority in regards to the first action, and the action the state of Missouri recognizes as its adoption. And so the department just wanted to go through a list of 5 items it intends to address by the next meeting, which is May 13th. And the first is we will be excluding the Post-it note component. And we just felt that it would be great to get initial impressions from members, but it's taking much too long and not rendering information that really seems to be beneficial to the process. We also will eliminate the videos that were anticipated. We did one at the last meeting on the environment, the environmental element, the environment of Wildwood. Again, it took a great deal of time to prepare that video with our consultant, Silver Tablet Marketing. It took Ms. Ripito, Mr. Newberry, Ms. Keefe, and myself time to review it. And for the most part, I thought it was well done, but there wasn't much comment about it at all. Third, the intent is to kind of change the management structure of the meeting. Obviously, with the chair and vice chair, the department believes very strongly it's their role to manage the meeting. We're going to ensure that Mr. Roughton and Mr. Loyal have that opportunity more so than in the past. And lastly, we are going to limit the agenda items. So you'll see a very different looking agenda in terms of the next steps, and it'll focus almost entirely on reviewing an element if it's been completed at the previous meeting, and then doing a new element, and then just listing the next element that will be for consideration by the oversight group. It's difficult to mention these because the department's responsible for meeting function and the productivity associated with them. So I will apologize to the group next week that we've, for all intents and purposes, not achieved the goals that we had set out for at our January meeting. But it is the intent of the department to do its best to conclude this process as promised by the end of December 2025 and have an updated master plan to the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council in early 2026. Again, it is being presented to you tonight because you are the ultimate authority, and I think it's only fair that you understand the direction the department would like to go relative to the meetings. And certainly, if you feel strongly that any of the 4 items should be retained, we can have that discussion. But otherwise, if you're supportive, you will see it implemented on May 13th. And with that, I will conclude. And if there are any questions or comments regarding the memorandum and its content, the department would be glad to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Any questions?
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. All right, motion to adjourn. Motion by Commissioner Clayton. Seconded by Commissioner Helfrey. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, have a good night, everyone.